civil rights attorneys filed a lawsuit against the Trump administration on Saturday, seeking to prevent the transfer of 10 migrants detained in the United States to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. This lawsuit marks the second legal challenge in less than a month against the administration's plans to use the naval base to hold up to 30,000 immigrants for deportation. The latest lawsuit specifically applies to 10 men who are facing transfer to Guantanamo Bay. Their attorneys claim that the administration has not provided any notification regarding the identities of those being transferred or the timing of the transfers. The case, which was filed in Washington, D.C., is being supported by the American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU, which is also backing another ongoing lawsuit seeking access to migrants already detained at the facility. At least 50 migrants have reportedly been transferred to Guantanamo Bay so far, with civil rights attorneys estimating the number may now be closer to 200. This marks the first instance in U.S. history in which the government has detained non-citizens at Guantanamo Bay solely on civil immigration charges. Historically, the naval base has been used to detain foreign nationals associated with the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks. Former President Donald Trump has stated that Guantanamo Bay, commonly referred to as Gitmo, has the capacity to house up to 30,000 immigrants living in the U.S. He has emphasized that his plan is to send the worst or highest risk criminal aliens to the facility. However, the administration has not disclosed specific details regarding who is being transferred or the crimes they have allegedly committed. It remains unclear whether these individuals have been convicted in court, merely charged, or simply arrested. Legal challenge against the transfers. Lee Gallant, an ACLU attorney and the lead counsel on the case, stated that the primary goal of the second lawsuit is to prevent additional individuals from being unlawfully sent to Guantanamo Bay. He emphasized that the conditions at the detention facility have been exposed as inhumane. The lawsuit is not claiming they cannot be detained in U.S. facilities, but only that they cannot be sent to Guantanamo. Gallant said, the 10 men facing imminent transfer hail from various countries, including Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and Venezuela. Their attorneys assert that these individuals are neither high-risk criminals nor gang members. Trump's executive order issued on January 29th, which expanded operations at Guantanamo Bay, stated that one of the administration's objectives was to dismantle criminal cartels. Attorneys for the migrants have described the lawsuit as an emergency filing intended to halt the immediate transfers and to challenge the administration's broader plans. They argue that the transfers violate the due process rights of the migrants, as guaranteed by the Fifth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. The lawsuit further contends that federal immigration law prohibits the transfer of non-Cuban migrants from the United States to Guantanamo Bay. Additionally, attorneys argue that the U.S. government lacks the authority to detain individuals outside of U.S. territory, as Guantanamo Bay remains legally part of Cuba. The lawsuit describes the transfers as arbitrary and unlawful. Concerns over due process and transparency. The attorneys representing the detained migrants allege that many of the individuals sent to Guantanamo Bay do not have serious criminal records, and some may have no criminal history at all. In their first lawsuit, filed on February 12th, attorneys claimed that migrants sent to Guantanamo Bay had effectively disappeared into a black box, unable to contact legal representatives or family members. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security, one of the agencies being sued, responded by asserting that detainees could reach their attorneys via phone. In a separate legal case in New Mexico, a federal judge blocked the transfer of 3 Venezuelans, immigrants being held in the state, to Guantanamo Bay. The lawsuit, filed on February 9th, argued that these individuals had been falsely accused of gang affiliations. Guantanamo Bay's controversial role in immigration enforcement, the migrant detention facility at Guantanamo Bay, is distinct from the U.S. military's detention center and courtrooms that were established during President George W. Bush's administration in response to the War on Terror. The military facility once held nearly 800 detainees, but currently houses only 15 individuals, including Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the alleged mastermind of the 9/11 attacks. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, who previously served at Guantanamo Bay while on active duty, has publicly supported the idea of using the facility to house migrants. Trump himself has described the naval base as a tough place to get out of. United Nations investigator who visited Guantanamo Bay in 2023 reported that, while conditions had improved in certain respects, detainees continue to face constant surveillance, forced removals from their cells, and unjustified use of restraints. The investigator concluded that these conditions amounted to ongoing cruel, inhuman, and degrading treatment under international law. The U.S. government responded by disputing the findings, asserting that it disagreed, in significant respects, with the investigator's report. Broader implications of the lawsuits. The legal battle over Guantanamo Bay's use as an immigration detention center raises significant constitutional and human rights concerns. Civil rights groups argue that detaining non-citizens at Guantanamo Bay without due process sets a dangerous precedent and erodes fundamental legal protections. Additionally, the secrecy surrounding the selection and transfer process of detainees has fueled criticism over the lack of transparency and oversight. Human rights organizations have also voiced concerns about the psychological and physical impact of detaining migrants in a facility known for its harsh conditions and history of abuse. Many of the detainees at Guantanamo Bay have already endured traumatic experiences, and prolonged detention in such an environment may exacerbate their suffering. As legal battles continue, the outcome of these lawsuits could have far-reaching implications for U.S. immigration policy. If the courts rule against the Trump administration's use of Guantanamo Bay for migrant detention, it could force the government to find alternative solutions for handling individuals facing deportation. Conversely, if the administration prevails, it could pave the way for expanded use of offshore detention facilities for non-citizens, raising further ethical and legal questions about the treatment of migrants under U.S. law. Conclusion: the Trump administration's efforts to transfer migrants to Guantanamo Bay have sparked intense legal challenges and widespread criticism from civil rights groups, immigration advocates, and international organizations. As the lawsuits progress through the courts, they will likely set important legal precedents regarding the rights of non-citizens and the government's authority to detain individuals outside of U.S. borders. For now, the fate of the 10 migrants facing imminent transfer remains uncertain. Their attorneys continue to fight for their right to due process, arguing that no one should be detained at Guantanamo Bay without clear legal justification and access to proper legal representation. The broader battle over the use of Guantanamo Bay as an immigration detention center is far from over, and its outcome will have lasting consequences for U.S. immigration policy and human rights protections.